Welcome to the High Income Business Writing Podcast, helping you propel your writing business to a whole new level. And now, here's your host, Ed Gandia.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of the High Income Business Writing Podcast, the number one podcast for freelance writers, copywriters, and solo marketers who want to earn more in less time doing work they love for better clients. With over 1.3 million downloads from listeners just like you across 101 countries. 2 episodes ago, in episode 384, we talked about following the constraint. And we talked about how value migrates to where the new obstacles appear. And we discussed how writing skills used to be the constraint, but AI has eliminated that and continues to erode that. Now, I'm not saying that AI on its own can write as well as a professional freelance writer. So let me just make that very clear. But it has dramatically compressed the distance between incompetence in terms of writing, which is creating all kinds of pricing pressure and disruption for average or just competent writers. Now, as a result, the real value is moving to the parts of your work that involve judgment and risk mitigation, coordination, confidence creation. There is so much opportunity right now and so many possibilities within these areas, and more are emerging, that it pains me when I hear writers interpret this incorrectly, as if the only 2 options are to either keep writing or to move into content strategy. That's a very limited view of the situation and the opportunities that will keep emerging over the next few months and the years ahead. In this podcast, over the next few months, I'm going to be sharing more ideas, more examples, more explanations of all the different possibilities that are opening up for smart, strategic writers who have strong critical thinking and creative problem-solving skills. And today, I want to start that by focusing on one specific category that is emerging. And this is one that many writers just aren't seeing. Your clients desperately want to use AI. Now, that desire is coming internally within teams, and it's definitely coming from the top, from the organization's leadership. And teams know they need to. They know they need to get their act together. And you would think that many teams are way ahead of us, that they're already using AI. You would be surprised when you look behind the curtain how uncoordinated AI usage is among organizations. And they're stuck. They're stuck not because they lack the tools. They have the tools in many cases. They have ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini. They have all those things. They're stuck because they don't know some really important information or lack important insight. So for example, they're not sure which tool to use for what, or how to avoid embarrassing mistakes, or whether what they're creating is any good. You know, it's like me. I've always joked around that it's me with Canva, right? I create something in Canva. I look at it and go, I don't know if this is good or not. I can't tell, right? So this is a lot of what you're seeing out there, not just in corporate America, but also across nonprofits and all kinds of different organizations. They also don't know how to maintain their brand voice consistently across these assets they're trying to create with the help of AI, or how to integrate AI without angering their different teams or their colleagues, or whether what they're about to do is legally risky, what they're about to put out there. Are there any potential problems, any compliance issues? The issue here, and the point I'm trying to really emphasize, is that information is not the constraint anymore. Now, one of the real constraints is implementation confidence. And you, with your combination of writing expertise and AI knowledge, are perfectly positioned to become their guide through this process, through this time. But here's the thing, nobody's going to pay you for informal help. They need to see it packaged as a real service. Now, this year, you may have heard over the past few episodes, I've talked about this on and off. I went back to doing writing work for some clients, and specifically two home services companies. And I came in through the content marketing door. But my scope and my value has shifted just over the past 6 or 8 months or so. Now I'm building custom GPTs for them, creating operational systems around AI tools, and then training their teams on how not to shoot themselves in the foot. I never planned this. I never planned for it to unfold this way. But again, the constraints are quickly shifting, and I've decided to shift my offerings with them. And here's what's crazy. This AI guidance and implementation work is more valuable and more lucrative than the writing itself if you price it accordingly. So I want to show you 3 ways writers are currently helping clients with AI and why 2 of them will keep you broke if you're not careful. So let's start here. One type is what I would call the informal helper. And this is where many of you might be. So you're doing things like answering AI questions in client emails, or you're showing them cool prompts during project work. You're suggesting tools when they ask you. Maybe you're even doing some AI-enabled work together. And the problem is that this is invisible labor. It doesn't have a name. It doesn't have a price, doesn't have a process. So clients see it as a nice to have rather than a must buy part of your value of your services. So for example, you spend, let's say 30 minutes on a call, walking a client through how to use ChatGPT for creating their blog briefs. And they love it. They thank you. And that's where it ends. No additional revenue. You just gave up your time for free. So that's one. Another type is what we might call the AI-enabled doer. So this is a step up, but it's still leaving money on the table. So you might use AI to deliver your existing services faster and better. You might charge the same, but deliver in half the time, let's say. You're more efficient, but the client doesn't see or value the AI part. And this is where I found through my latest survey on AI usage among freelance writers this past August, September, this is where about 32% of writers are finding themselves today. They're capturing the efficiency gains, which at first is just glorious. Like, oh my gosh, I free up more time. I can get this stuff done so much faster. But they're not capturing the guidance value. So they're still selling outputs, but they're not selling expertise. So they're essentially just charging the same amount for the same work. They've freed up time, which is great, but that just means that they're filling that with additional deliverables, more work. And what they're doing is they're doing more stuff to increase their income. They're not capturing the additional value they're bringing to their clients. So let's just say, as an example, you write a client's white paper using AI-assisted research and drafting. And it's great work, and you did it in, let's just say, half the time. But they don't know that. And frankly, they don't care. They paid for a quality white paper, and that's what they got. Now, sure, you freed up time, and that's valuable, but you're probably just going to use that freed up time to now bring in or try to bring in more work. So essentially, you're not creating the kind of lifestyle, I would argue, that you probably want. You're just kind of jamming more stuff in because you're able to create it faster. Now, it might look great on your income statement, right? You see that you're bringing in more revenue, you have more profit, but at the end of the day, you're just cranking out more widgets and you're not really charging more for them. Let's talk about the third type, the AI implementation partner. And this is where the money is. So a lot of different versions of this, but let's just say that you package your AI knowledge as a distinct consulting service. You have a clear offer that includes clear scope, deliverables, a process, step by step of how it works, a timeline, and very important, outcomes. You're not just using AI here. You're teaching them. You're building systems for them. You're guiding their strategy around this. And you could probably start seeing the difference here because now you're going from a writer who uses AI to AI implementation consultant who can also write. It's a big difference there. Let me give you an example. Let's just say that a client pays you $7,500. The amount doesn't really matter. $7,500 for, let's say, a 4-week AI content operations sprint where you audit their current processes, you build them 3 custom GPTs for their most common content needs, you train their team on best practices, and you create an ongoing workflow that maintains quality and their brand voice. They got transformation there, not just a deliverable. You see the difference? You're not selling the widget, you're selling the transformation, the outcomes. So, in these 3 examples, type 1 and type 2, the first 2, in those, writers are solving what I would argue are yesterday's constraints, which was what? Content production. The last example, type 3, the AI implementation partner, as a writer, if you do this, you're solving one of today's constraints, which is AI implementation confidence. Sanjeet Paul Choudhary, the author of Reshuffle, whom I mentioned many times in that episode, 384, he rightly pointed out that jobs are design artifacts of constraints. Now, that seems very jargony, but basically what he was saying there is that jobs only exist because there's an actual constraint that needs to be addressed. But when the constraint moves, the job must be redesigned. So lots of great examples of this throughout history. You've probably seen black and white pictures of back in the day, back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, of these huge rooms filled with desks, each of them taken up by a typist. So it would be someone sitting on the desk in front of a typewriter, and all they did all day long, it sounds exhausting, was just type memos, letters, reports, etc. That job only existed because the only way to create that work was through a typewriter. What happens when the word processor, the PC, came to being, right? What happened to those jobs? You could say were destroyed, but in many cases, they were redesigned. So many of these ladies, and most of them were ladies, now restructured their value into administrative assistants that involved, sure, there was some word processing work there, but now they did way more than this, schedule coordination, being the filter for the executive, and so on and so forth. So again, many different examples. You could probably see it today. How many jobs, and I would argue any job out there, exists because there is some sort of constraint that needs to be addressed. If that constraint moves, when it moves, that job is either destroyed or in many cases redesigned. And by the way, just as a side note, I think it's something that I find the media doesn't do a very good job of, and I think they do it on purpose because they thrive on fear and drama. They really push this idea that jobs are being destroyed. And jobs, some of them will go away. Yes, there's no doubt about it. I argue that in most cases, in many cases, people will reinvent themselves. Professionals will reinvent themselves. New jobs are going to be redesigned. They will shift into something different. Now, we can argue about the speed at which this will happen. There's a lot of nuance there. I have concerns about it. My point is that jobs truly are design artifacts of current existing constraints. Your writing job was designed around the production constraint, meaning the constraint of needing a solid writer to get the work done, to craft the work, to crank out the words, the narrative. But as I continue to argue, that constraint is rapidly dissolving. Now, again, I just want to be very clear because I have found when I post about this on LinkedIn, when I talk to people about it, people can misconstrue what I'm saying. So I want to be very clear here because this critical nuance is being lost in many of these discussions. The erosion of the craft is a highly emotional topic. And I get that when emotions run high, it's very easy to get caught in a doom spiral and just miss the important details. Writing is not going away. Writing for clients is not going away. Getting paid to produce deliverables is not going away. And in fact, I got plenty of proof for this that even the big AI companies are hiring writers. So you may have seen this these announcements went viral on LinkedIn there for a few weeks. Let me give you some examples because I dug into them and then I want to show you the rest of the story about these roles. So Anthropic, which makes Claude, had a posting for a writer supposedly with a compensation of $320,000 a year. And also an editorial writer role paying $255,000 to $320,000 a year. OpenAI had a job opening for a content strategist paying $393,000 a year plus equity. And Perplexity recently posted a content marketing role paying $130,000 to $170,000 a year, which tells you a lot, doesn't it? Right? But what exactly is that telling us? Now, when I read the posts on LinkedIn about these job postings, all I heard was writers saying, see, I told you so. These tools are garbage and the AI companies know it. So they have to hire seasoned writers at the top of their game to create content worth reading. I would argue that this is the wrong conclusion because it's based on incorrect assumptions. And this is where the nuance and context really matters. This is where it pays to dig deeper and examine all the details. This is where, and a perfect example of why you can't just read headlines. You have to go beyond the headline. In fact, I hate it, but I've become a bit of a cynic. Every time I read a headline, I don't believe it. So if I'm interested, I dig deeper, and 97% of the time, I find that the story is way more nuanced than that. The headline was there just to get you to click. And it is what it is. I get it, but there's more to this story about these writing roles than meets the eye. So let's look under the hood, see what's really going on. When you look at the Anthropic opportunities, here's what you find. One of those opportunities actually is for an editorial economics and policy lead with a salary range of $255,000 to $320,000 a year. Now, the posting went live in early November 2025, and it's specifically focused on writing about economics, AI policy, and societal implications of AI. When I read about it, you quickly see that the role involves way more than writing. It involves engaging with policymakers, think tanks, media to shape critical conversations about AI policy. The other Anthropic job was for an AI in science role paying $200,000 to $255,000 a year. And here's a bit from the actual job description and requirements. And I quote, Anthropic seeks someone with a proven track record of writing about technical or scientific topics for broad audiences who can communicate complex ideas creatively without sacrificing accuracy. The role requires deep knowledge of the recent history of AI for science, its current limitations, and future promise, plus exceptional ability to quickly master technical subjects. Strong candidates typically have an advanced degree in biomedical or other scientific disciplines, direct experience using AI models in scientific research, a portfolio demonstrating creative technical communication approaches, and a track record of building engaged audiences around technical content. Unquote. Interesting, right? There's a lot more to it. Let's look at the OpenAI content strategist position paying $310,000 to $393,000 a year plus equity. All right, so here's some details straight from the job posting, and I quote, the hired strategist will own the full content strategy for ChatGPT.com, defining and executing how OpenAI's flagship product communicates with the world. Key duties include shaping how the brand sounds globally, setting voice and tone guidelines for the organization, and rolling up sleeves to write, edit, and publish content that resonates with both businesses and consumers. And then goes on to say that the strategist is going to partner with cross-functionally with design, growth, and engineering teams to bring content to life in elegant, user-centered ways The role is described as critical to ChatGPT's success and will help shape how the world understands the product. So they're looking for candidates with, they listed, I believe, 6 to 10 or more years of experience in content strategy, copywriting, growth marketing at a high growth company or prominent brand. And this is explicitly described as an advanced senior level role, no entry level, requiring someone with extensive background in strategic brand messaging and voice development. Here's a nuance I urge you to consider as you just listen to the rest of the story, right? First, these are not order-taking roles. They're not your typical staff writer roles. These companies are not looking for writers to write blog posts, SEO content, or their customer newsletters. They go way beyond writing, and they call for a set of skills that the market has decided are even more valuable than just the words themselves. So it's not so much that these AI tools are garbage when it comes to writing. It's much more about the fact that the writing layer is being commoditized by AI, while the other layers are now more valuable than ever before. What layers am I talking about? Things like judgment, discernment, critical thinking, taste, lived experience, intuition, implementation capability, strategic positioning, cross-functional collaboration, risk mitigation, audience development, contextual awareness. And that requires a new job design, one that's structured, packaged, and priced accordingly. When I've talked about this publicly, some writers have argued that these value adds are things that have actually been delivering for clients for a long time, so they don't understand the difference. They're telling me, well, yeah, I mean, my clients, I think, hire me for those things, even as much so as the writing, maybe even more so than the writing. And that's why they keep coming back, because of all the value that I add beyond just the written word. So they wonder, Ed, what's the difference between that and what I'm talking about here? There's a huge difference, because what happens is 95% of the time, in my experience, writers don't charge for those additional value add layers. They just bundle them into their writing projects. And I can tell you, because I see it all the time, and guess what? I did that for years. I was proud of that. I remember I even had copy on my website that proudly stated that, you know what? I include that in our engagements. I go beyond just writing and doing and turning in deliverables. So I did it. But today, you can't afford to keep doing that. If you don't splinter off those other non-writing elements from your writing projects, you risk commoditization. You have to redefine, you have to reshape and reposition your role around these critical value layers. Now, many writers aren't going to be willing to make this shift into a redesigned role. I've heard from many people who said, Ed, I got into this because I just want to write. That's what I do. And I just love the craft. And you know what? I respect that. I'm not here to preach a gospel of acquiesce or die. Not at all. If this is not something that feels right for you, deep down, not because of fear, okay? Because that's something different. You know, so a lot of people have these capabilities. They would actually really enjoy shifting their focus and their attention to more of these other elements, but it's fear that's getting in the way. And if that's the case, then I would urge you to sit with that for a bit. But if it's just not right for you, period, for some other bigger reason, I completely respect your decision to hold the line or to find another path that feels right for you. There's nothing wrong with that. I have no vested interest in telling you, you have to shift. It's got to be right for you. But I'm talking about many writers who do understand the shift. They're starting to understand what's happening, and they are getting a clear idea of where this is going, but they're not doing anything about it because they're running into what we could call packaging blockers, which is what I want to address next. There's specifically 3 packaging blockers that I see over and over again. Many writers know they should be monetizing their AI knowledge. The I talk to a lot of people, and I would say that what I'm noticing is that freelance writers, copywriters, solo marketers, we actually are ahead of the game across multiple professions when it comes to AI adoption. And there are many reasons for that, but you would be surprised. We tend to, I think, first of all, because we deal with the written word all the time. So I think it's just a natural thing for us to just adopt these tools, to play with them. But also, I think it's the way we're wired. Like, this is such a creative process. I think prompting and working with these tools is such a right brain creative process that many of us just naturally gravitate toward using them and playing with them and experimenting. But, we tend to not monetize this knowledge. We tend to use it just for ourselves internally to improve our work, to get it done again faster, right? But there are three obstacles that keep us from monetizing those capabilities. And the first one is the I don't know enough blocker. So you're thinking, well, these consultants that you're talking about who are charging, you mentioned $7,500 is one example. They got to know way more than me. And the reality is that not necessarily. They just package what they know into something clients can buy. The truth is, you don't need to be an AI expert. You just need to know more than your clients. And again, in many cases, I will tell you that you know more than you think. Your clients aren't spending their whole week and their whole day deep with these models, using it for all different aspects of the writing process. Remember, your clients wear a lot of different hats. A marketing director is, he or she has to deal with about 27 different things, content writing being only one of them out of those 27. So you know more than you think you do, and you probably know more than your clients. If you're an intermediate level AI user, you'd be surprised what you are able to deliver in terms of value. You understand prompt engineering basics. You've tested tools. You know which ones work best for which task. You've learned what processes work well and which ones don't work as well. And you've done this through just trial and error. You can help clients avoid the stupid mistakes you've already made. And that's thousands of dollars worth of value right there. Not because you know everything, but because you can save them months of stumbling around. You remember back in episode 384, if you listen to that, I used the example of the sommelier. And sommelier doesn't need to know everything about every wine in the world. They know enough to guide someone through a confidence choice, right? That's you with AI. Or to put it differently, this is one example I just love to share with people and even to remind myself of. To a kid in 5th grade, a 10th grader in high school is a really big kid who knows a lot about a lot. Okay, so this is all relative. You don't have to be a PhD. If you're in 10th grade, you can find plenty of 4th, 5th, and 6th graders who will look up to you and to whom you can add a tremendous amount of value. So I got an action step for each of these. And for this one, I would urge you to make a list of 10 AI lessons you have learned the hard way. Give that some thought. What would have been the screw ups, oh man, I don't do that, those kind of moments. Each one is worth, who knows, $500, $1,000 in saved client pain. Boom, you just found a few $1,000s in consulting value right there through that little exercise. All right, blocker number 2 is the I don't know what to sell blocker, the blank canvas problem. So you're thinking, AI consulting is too vague. What would I even offer? This blocker is real. This is one I really struggled with because a vague offer like AI help, that's not going to sell. Now, here's a secret. You don't create your offer from scratch. You extract it from client relationships. So here's what I would urge you to do. Just start paying attention. Look at what your clients are already asking you about. Look at what they're doing and not doing. ChatGPT implementation for marketing teams, custom GPT development for specific use cases, AI workflow automation for repetitive tasks, AI brand voice training so that their AI sounds like them, AI content audits to identify opportunities, smart content repurposing strategy and planning made easier, AI experimentation sprints to test use cases. I mean, I could go on and on and on. When you start with what you're seeing out there, your offer isn't theoretical. It's not academic. It's the answer to a question or a gap you see with existing clients. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't plan to offer AI implementation consulting to my home services clients. It all started with just writing. I thought we're just going to create content here and do email drip campaigns and help them with anything around that. But we got to a point where everything was really dialed in. They wanted to keep doing all of it and more, but they couldn't afford to do more with me. They couldn't afford to expand my scope. So I thought about this and I came back to them and I said, look, I recommend that you hire a part-time marketing professional in-house, because what I told them was normally what you're talking about here and what I'm also recommending would require a full-time marketing professional to be there with you. But I know you don't have the budget for that. But I can show this person how they could do what would normally be a full-time workload with part-time hours in a series of AI tools and documented workflows. Now, the right professional needs to have some things. They need to have the right level of experience, judgment, discernment, intuition. Definitely have come from the home services industry. That's going to be huge. And with the tools that I'll create and I'm creating for you, they can accomplish in 20 hours a week what would normally require 40 plus hours every week. And as the company's president and I talked more about this, I realized that I could do even more for them. I could even help them find this person. I could help select them. I could help onboard and train them. I could show them how to use projects in ChatGPT to leverage the mountains of data and spreadsheets and other files to brainstorm better ideas and make better decisions. So in other words, a specific project for the CEO or the founder, because he was spending hours and hours sifting through all that stuff and struggling to get the kind of insights that he really needed. So I'm not just talking about helping create a really leveraged position in marketing, but also help the leadership with better decision making. So my point here is that if you listen carefully, if you pay attention, your clients are telling you what to sell, not directly, but they're showing you. You just have to listen. You have to identify it. You have to think about it, and come up with something simple that's easy to say yes to. So my action step for this blocker is, over the next week or so, I would encourage you to track every AI-related question or comment from clients, every gap that you see, every how did you do that question from them when you just show them something or you do something very quickly, or every comment you hear of, I wish we could use AI for X. All those things are a potential service. And if you really spend some time over the next week thinking about this, you'll have some ideas, some really good ideas by the end of the week that you could actually work with. All right, final blocker, the I don't know how to price it blocker. And you're thinking, well, I can't charge consulting rates for this. I'm a writer. Wrong. You're not pricing writing anymore. You're pricing transformation. And there's a big difference there. So there's a shift you have to make. A writing deliverable might be, let's say, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. That's an output-based framework or frame that you're putting on it. An AI consulting engagement could be $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 or more. And that needs to be framed as outcome-based. Notice the difference. Output-based versus outcome-based. One solves a production problem. The other solves an implementation problem. And implementation problems are more expensive to solve and more painful to live with if you don't solve them. So let's talk about value anchoring. What's it worth to a client to avoid 3 months of AI trial and error? I mean, it just depends on who they are, what's the trial and error, what they're working on. But it's not unreasonable to say that $3,000 to $5,000 a month and save time or mistakes, that especially at first, maybe not every month, but initially, that's a lot of money. What's it worth to a client to not embarrass themselves with low quality AI content? Now, that's really hard to put a price to. I'd argue that's priceless. That reputation risk is big. What's it worth to a client to actually use the AI tools they've already bought that they're already paying for? What's it worth to a client to get their team bought into AI instead of resisting? There's an operational transformation there that could actually happen if they could get their team to use it and use it enthusiastically. When you add it up, $5,000, $7,500 for a structure engagement looks like a bargain. So you really have to kind of shift the language and around a new positioning. So instead of, I'll help you use ChatGPT, which is, there's some value there, but it's not huge. What have you shifted to? I'll audit your content operations. I'll identify your 3 highest value AI opportunities. I'll build you custom GPTs for each. I'll train your team, and I'll set up ongoing workflows that maintain your quality standards. That's up, who knows what, 10 times the value at least of I'll help you use ChatGPT. See the difference? It's the same knowledge, different packaging, different framing. So we've cleared the blockers, right? But you're probably wondering, well, that sounds great, but what does a packaged AI service actually look like? Well, let me give you a little bit of guidance there. There are a number of ways to create a successful offer, and I'm going to share a basic 4-part structure that you can use to build a sellable AI consulting offer. There's different ways you can look at it. I teach a much more detailed and refined version that we don't have time for here, but this one will really get you going. So the part 1 is about the constraint that you're managing, your positioning hook. So this is less about what you do and all about what you solve. Some examples. I help marketing teams adopt AI without destroying their brand voice. Or I help implement AI content systems that your legal team will actually approve. I build AI workflows for service businesses that preserve the human touch customers expect. I guide small to mid-sized consulting firms through implementing AI tools that enable their consultants to mine the treasure trove of data in their systems. That way they can get the right intel at the right time. I help B2B SaaS companies deploy AI-enabled writing workflows without alienating their internal content team. Now, notice that each one of these examples identifies the new constraint, right? There was a few in there. There was some examples talked about brand consistency, legal risk, human touch, mining key intel, team buy-in. All those are new constraints, right? When AI suddenly solves the production problem, or much of it, the constraint shifts to these different areas. And that's what you're really selling. So that's part 1. Part 1, the constraint. You got to identify the constraint you're managing. Part 2, the deliverables and process. So in other words, what they actually get and how the engagement will flow. The truth is that vague promises don't sell. Specific outcomes do. A good offer structure goes something like this. You have to show them and give them a vision of how this will play out in the context of a timeline. Week 1, we're going to do this. Week 2 to 3, we do this. Week 4, we do this. So for example, week 1 is the discovery and audit phase. We do an AI opportunity assessment or a current process audit or whatever. Week 2 to 3, we build. So I'll build 3 custom GPTs for each of these applications, or we do the AI workflow documentation or brand voice AI training, like all of the above, whatever. And then week 4 is a training and handoff phase. Team training sessions, implementation playbook that I'll leave you with, all that sort of thing. People need to see when you're now working outside of just deliverables, your clients and prospects need to see what this is going to look like. It's going to make your value proposition way more tangible if you can walk them through the process, okay, and the deliverables that are going to be included. So the pattern is basically, if you were to zoom out, Assess, build, enable. That's a really good structure to use when putting these things together. So some example offers: a 4-week AI content operations sprint, where week 1, you audit current content processes and identify 3 highest value AI opportunities. And in weeks 2 to 3, you build custom GPTs for each opportunity and then document the workflows. In week 4, you train the team and you create and leave them with a sustainability playbook. And the outcome of this is that the client has working AI systems that maintain the quality that they're looking for. Okay, and let's just say that you charge $7,500 for that, or $5,000. As you'll see here in a minute, pricing doesn't really matter. The point is they need to be priced accordingly. Let's look at another one: AI brand voice implementation. So week 1, maybe you extract brand voice from existing content and you create training materials. Week 2, you build custom GPT, train on their voice and test against real examples. And week 3, you train the team on using the voice accurate GPT and how to handle edge cases. And the outcome here is that the AI sounds now more like them, not like everyone else. Okay, so you get the point here. It's this assess, build, enable framework can really guide how you structure these opportunities. Now, again, I want to stress this. Notice that these are not "I'll help you with AI" offers. These are structured engagements with clear start and end dates, with specific deliverables, and with measurable outcomes. All right, part 3, the timeline, creating urgency and momentum. You need to understand that open-ended consulting dies in client indecision, but structured timelines create momentum. Some best practices to keep in mind: 3 to 4 weeks. There's no hard and fast rules for this, but 3 to 4 weeks is about the sweet spot for a lot of these engagements. That's long enough for results, but short enough for getting client commitment. Week by week deliverables, those are great because they create checkpoints. Built-in review and adjustment points keep clients engaged. And having a clear endpoint makes the investment feel finite. And that's really important because a $7,000 4-week engagement feels manageable, but a $7,000 ongoing AI consulting feels a bit risky and expensive to a prospect. Now, this could eventually turn into something bigger, into a monthly retainer, but I found that it's best to just start with a very specific short-term engagement that's bookended with a clear beginning and an end. And once you deliver, you can then start a new discussion about other opportunities. All right, so that's part 3. Part 4 is the outcome or the transformation. So what's going to change for them? And this is what you're really selling here. Not the GPTs, not the workshop. Okay, you're selling the after state. Weak outcome language you want to avoid are things like, oh, you're going to have AI tools so you can use, or your team will understand AI. That's vague. Or you'll create content faster. Well, everyone says this, right? So you can't really hinge your value proposition on those things. You need strong outcome language, like your content team will produce 3 times more content while maintaining quality standards your CEO will love or approve. Or you'll have brand voice trained AI systems that eliminate the "does this sound like us" bottleneck. Or your team will confidently use AI for fill in the blank, whatever the specific use case is, without the legal or brand risk. So think of the formula here. We're going to zoom out. The formula is quantifiable improvement plus specific process plus risk elimination equals success. Now, I want to give you an example. I don't tell my clients, I'm going to build you a customer service GPT. I'll tell them, I'm going to create an AI-powered customer response system that handles your most common customer questions and issues while maintaining the personal, neighborhood-focused tone that's built your reputation. That way, your customer service reps and management team can focus on complex issues that actually need human judgment. See that? I'm not selling a GPT here. I'm selling operational leverage. I'm selling brand protection. I'm selling team liberation. So again, the takeaway here is to create a package AI service that has, number 1, a clear constraint it manages, number 2, specific deliverables, number 3, a tight timeline, and number 4, a measurable outcome. And when you have all 4, you have something clients can more easily say yes to. Without all 4, you have basically a vague promise that's just going to die. It's just going to be like a let me think about it and get back to you kind of thing. It doesn't have teeth. It doesn't have that sense of urgency. Okay, so let's just say you've cleared all the blockers, you've packaged something, and you know what you're selling. Now, here's what nobody tells you about what comes next. You're going to feel like a fraud. You're going to doubt yourself. You're going to wonder if you're even ready. And you might even be feeling that way right now, but that's fine. But let's say you muster enough courage and enthusiasm to actually move forward. And then when you put it together, you're going to start to doubt yourself. You really are. And I know this because I struggle with that myself. Look, I might sound like I got it all figured out. I got to be honest with you. I don't. I'm learning every day. Okay. I'm working with a level of confidence that I have today. And I wish the confidence was even higher, but as I move forward in faith, I know that I will get some results, which are going to boost my confidence, which are going to enable me to push myself a little bit more, and so on and so forth. No one is immune from this. We all have to deal with that. We all have to keep pushing ourselves. I am certainly no exception. I struggle with it, and I want you to know that I'm not the most confident person in the world, and especially when I'm pushing myself to go after something bigger and better, it's a struggle. I mean, I deal with this all the time, and I can tell you that you can push through it as well. Okay, we're all in this together. Now, but let me save you some pain and tell you what's actually going to happen as you move forward here in faith. Number one, first reality, your first few pitches are going to be messy. They are. You're going to stumble over your positioning. You're going to underprice your first engagement because you're scared. You might even give away the first one for free just to test it. And that's perfectly fine. That's normal. That's how you learn what lands. And I am totally okay with that. I've done the same thing many times before. Again, you can only sell effectively based on the current level of confidence you have to sell that thing. You can't sell something that requires a 10 level confidence if your confidence is a 4. You shouldn't sell a 4. You shouldn't match it. You should always feel a little bit scared. That's how you know you're pushing yourself. So what do you do about this? Well, here's a thought. Start with friendly clients. Start with people who already know, like, and trust you. And lead with something like this, and just be honest. Say, look, I'm experimenting with packaging my AI knowledge and experience and expertise, and I thought of you because of list the reason that solves their problem. Would you be open to being a guinea pig for this at a drastically reduced fee? That language gives you permission to be imperfect while still getting paid. You'd be surprised at how many people will take you up on something like that. Okay, so that's the first reality. First few pitches are going to be messy. It's not going to make for a great movie, okay, if they were to document it. You're not going to be Rocky. It's going to be messy. Reality number 2, you're going to discover you know more than you thought you did. Once you start actually delivering work like this, you'll realize that you have way more valuable knowledge than you gave yourself credit for. All those hours you spent figuring out prompts, that's all pure consulting value. All those mistakes you made that taught you what doesn't work, that's also consulting value. All those creative applications you discovered through just playing around, experimenting, you're finally going to get to monetize those experiments. The difference between you and the quote unquote experts charging $10,000 for their consulting engagements is that they packaged it first. That's it. When I started building AI systems for my clients, I kept thinking, am I charging them for something they could figure out themselves? And the answer was clear. First, they don't have the time. They really don't. Okay, so that's huge. Second, when they do try, they invariably do the wrong things. They hit dead ends, they take the wrong approaches, and they just give up because they just don't have the time, the expertise, the patience to see it all the way through. And that's a very normal thing. Could I figure out how to replace my kitchen faucet in my house? Sure, but I'm not very handy, and I don't have the time or the patience to watch multiple YouTube videos on the topic, only to eventually realize that none of those videos apply to the specific faucet I need help with. So, look, I've been down this road so many times. I'd rather call a plumber, even if it cost me, $400. You know what? Money well spent. So Yeah, I realized early on that my expertise isn't just knowing stuff, it's knowing what matters. It's knowing what's a waste of time and what's not. It's knowing how to apply it to my client's specific situation. That right there is worth real money. Reality number 3, your confidence will build with each engagement. I mentioned this a couple of minutes ago. It's so true. Your first AI consulting engagement will feel scary. Your third is going to feel comfortable. Your fifth will feel easy. That's the pattern. You know this from everything you've done in your professional life. You're not going to feel ready on day one. Nobody does, but each successful project becomes proof that you can do this. And each one makes the next pitch easier. Okay, so the engagement you start with, that first one, you're going to feel like, I think I can help you with this. It's going to feel tentative. Engagement number 2, I've helped someone else solve this exact problem. That's more confident, right? Engagement number 3, this is what I do. An authoritative tone. The difference between those is that you just did the work. You move forward in faith, just did the work and trust that good things are going to come out of it, even if you mess up, okay? Even if you trip all over yourself sometimes. Reality number 4, clients will respect the structure more than the brilliance. You know what? Clients don't need you to blow their minds with cutting-edge AI techniques. They need you to give them a clear path forward with someone they trust or from someone they trust that's going to guide the way. In fact, I would say that they don't want to know all the technical details. They don't care about that stuff. They don't have time for it. Just like I don't care to learn all about faucets from my plumber. My plumber comes in and he's like, oh, well, let me tell you how this thing works. I don't, you know what? I don't care. Just please replace my damaged faucet so we can start using your kitchen sink again. Because it's been 3 days. We're doing dishes in the bathroom. So yeah, this is important. Okay, please take note of this. The structure itself, the audit, the deliverables, the training, the handoff, that's what creates confidence. That's what makes them say yes. When they can see that there's a method here, that you're being methodical, that you have a plan, that's what's going to get them to commit. You don't have to be the world's leading AI expert. Again, to a 5th grader, a 10th grader is a big kid who knows a lot of things. You have to be organized. You have to be thoughtful. You have to be clear about what you're doing and why. So just remember, you're not selling AI brilliance. You're managing the implementation constraint, and that constraint is managed through process, not through genius. So stop waiting for the ready enough signals. Start with a structure. Let your expertise fill in as you go. So look, here's what I want you to understand. I'm going to come back to what I opened up with. Right now, there's a window of opportunity here. AI adoption is still chaotic. Businesses and organizations know they need it. And it doesn't always have to be at the full organizational level. In fact, in many cases, you're just going to be working with a small team inside an organization or even a small business just to help them with something very specific related to this. They don't know how to do it, okay? And they're looking for guides. They're probably stumbling through it, or maybe they have one person in there who's kind of doing their own thing, or maybe they're all kind of doing their own thing. It's all siloed. They're guessing. They're just trying to get the work done. And again, these are often department-specific, department-focused solutions and opportunities. In 6 to 12 months, and who knows, I'm not a futurist, but this is moving so fast that next year or so, that window is going to start closing. And that's because other people who don't write, who don't know your clients' businesses, who don't have your relationships, they're packaging AI consulting services right now. And if you wait, they're going to be the ones your clients turn to. And you know what? Everything else being equal, clients would rather work with someone they already know, like, and trust. Someone like you. This isn't about being an AI expert. This is about being first to package what you already know for clients who desperately need it. And you have some unfair advantages. You already have client relationships based on trust. You understand their business, their voice, and brand in ways a random AI consultant never will. You've been quietly learning AI by doing, which is more valuable than any certification that you can get. And you can combine implementation guidance with execution, and you can build it and you can teach them how to use it. That combination is rare and it's valuable. So again, the constraint is moving fast. Jobs are design artifacts of specific constraints at this moment. The writing constraint is getting dissolved. The implementation constraint is now emerging, and whoever plants their flag in that new constraint territory first is going to win over the next few years. Now, you can either wait until you feel ready, which, let's face it, it's not going to happen because that's always a moving target. You keep saying, no, I'm not quite ready yet. It's a moving goalpost. Or you can package what you know right now and learn as you go. I have one final thought for you. You don't need to be the best AI consultant. You just need to be the one your clients trust to guide them through this. And you already are that person. You just haven't packaged it yet. So this week, I would urge you to give this some thought. Hey, extract just one offer idea from your client conversations, structure it, price it, pitch it to one person. That's how big things start. One more thing, if this is something you'd like to be supported through, I recently started working one-on-one with a small handful of writers to help them package their AI knowledge into premium consulting services. It's a half-day workshop where we meet over Zoom. I know it sounds like a long time over Zoom. Believe me, everyone has told me I've been doing half-day workshops through Zoom for a year and a half, and everyone always tells me that time just flew. So we take breaks, and we focus, we roll up our sleeves, and we build your complete offer together. And then I stay in your corner for 3 weeks while you pitch real clients. Now, I don't have any spots open right now, but I'm thinking about offering this again in January sometime, maybe February. It's going to be in Q1, so in first quarter of the year. So if this sounds like something you'd like to explore, just shoot me an email with the words AI Consultant Accelerator in the subject line. That way I know what it's for, and I'll send you all the details. No catch, no obligation of any kind. Just if you want to explore it, then let me know. But look, whatever you do, whether you work with me or not, I would just say and urge you to just do it. This window is not going to open forever. So I urge you to move forward in faith and just try something. All right, I'm done. Thanks for listening. Now go out there and build something. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the episode. And just a quick reminder to grab your free copy of my latest book, Earn More in Less Time: The Proven Mindset, Strategies, and Actions to Prosper as a Freelance Writer. You can get your free copy at b2blauncher.com, where you will also find the detailed show notes to this and all my other episodes. Enjoy and have a great day.